Hi, this is Mr. Call, starting a demonstration on how to draw a cube in two-point perspective. So, a couple things that I'm going to be using today. Pencils, got lots of pencils. Going to need a ruler, and then I've got a little triangle here that has 45 degrees, 30 degrees, and 60 degrees. That'll come in handy for this project as well. May also be helpful to have a little strip of paper or something. If you don't have a triangle, a regular sheet of paper will have a 90-degree corner that can be helpful as well. So we've talked about already drawing in one-point perspective, and that happens when the face of the object is facing you mostly, and then just the sides are receding, but this front plane is what's closest to you. And so in this case, there'd be a vanishing point heading off somewhere down there. But sometimes a cube or a rectangle is not facing you directly and a corner is facing you. And in that case, you're going to have a vanishing point heading off this way and a vanishing point heading off this way, hence the term two-point perspective, because there's two vanishing points. So we'll get started with this, and I'll kind of talk our way through how this is gonna, or how you can actually draw a really accurate one or two-point perspective cube, and knowing how to get these to recede the right amount of space. When the cube's facing us this way, this is really the true size. There's no foreshortening. But when you turn the cube like this, it's no longer, even though the cube really hasn't changed size, this side appears shorter because it's getting smaller as it gets further away. And there's a way to use what we call measuring points to accurately depict where this back edge and this back edge should be. So that's kind of what we're trying to accomplish today. So first thing I've drawn on my page is an eye level or a horizon line. And that just refers to anything that is below, that I draw on this page that's below that eye level would be below me. So in this case, if this cube, if I was drawing it on the page, I would see the top of the cube because it's below my eye level. But if the cube was above that line, I would see the bottom of it more than the top of it because it's above my eye level, so I would see underneath it. So this is the eye level. And then the next thing I need to do is to establish some vanishing points, because there's two vanishing points. And so I'm going to draw those on here. Here's vanishing point 1, and here's vanishing point 2. Okay, so I'm going to even label those VP1 and VP2. So the next thing that I need to do is to take my triangle here, and this one is a right angle, and I've got to connect these two vanishing points at a 90-degree angle, and I'll explain why in just a second. So it doesn't matter, you can twist it and turn it a little bit. You could have the corner over here or over here more. I'm going to put my corner somewhere off center just a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to draw in this line here, and I'm going to draw in this line here. Okay. Now this point down here where these two meet is going to be important, and we're going to label this SP, and that stands for station point. The station point refers to where the viewer is standing. So our eye level's here, but if we were in this picture plane, our feet would kind of be here. This is where we're standing, looking out this way. So, and with that, I'm going to make a perfectly vertical line, and I'm going to use my triangle again here with a right angle to draw a line directly down from my eye level here that represents what's called the line of sight. I'll write that here, line of sight. And so just like everything that's above the eye level is, I would see the bottom of it, and then if it's below the eye level, I would see the top of it. Well, in this case, anything that's on this side, I would see here, but anything that's on this side, I would see the inside plane here. So things get further away from me as they go from the side of this point and as they go above or below that eye level. So, and we establish that line of sight because another thing that happens when you're drawing in perspective is there's something called the cone of vision. And the cone of vision exists, I'm going to draw this more of a dotted line. Anything that we draw, we want to draw inside this cone of vision, because once you draw something outside that cone of vision, things get really distorted. And so if you want your cube to look really accurate and real, we need to draw it inside this cone of vision. So this total cone of vision is 60 degrees, or each half is 30 degrees. But we're going to put our cube inside of that cone of vision. So one more time, we have eye level, we have vanishing point 1, vanishing point 2. At a right angle, we have our station point. Our vertical line here becomes our line of sight. And then 30 degrees on either side of this is our cone of vision, where we want to keep our drawing inside of that cone of vision for this project. So the next thing that I need to do is I'm going to draw a line that's parallel to my eye level, and it can be anywhere inside the cone of vision. I'm going to draw it a little bit off to the side here, maybe just like right over here. Okay. So this line is not going to be a part of my cube, but it's going to be an important part for taking measurements. It's called the ground measuring line. Oh, and I skipped a step here, but let me put that on here. Ground measuring line. Okay, so there's another step that I skipped. We have our vanishing points, and now we need to put in what are called measuring points, and you'll see what these are used for later, but we need to have them set up. So what you're going to do, I'm going to measure the distance between vanishing point 2 and my station point, which is exactly 4 1/4. And I'm going to swing that up, and I'm going to put a dot right on my horizon line at exactly 4 1/4. And this is going to be, since this is vanishing point 2, this will be measuring point 2. And then we're going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to measure this, and this is 3 7/8. So I'm going to come up here, or 4 7/8, I guess. And right here, same distance from vanishing point 1. I'm going to put a mark here, and I'm going to call this measuring point 1 because it goes with vanishing point 1. Okay. So now I've got those in place. I've got my ground measuring line. Now the ground measuring line is what we're going to use to create our cube. So we're going to set a certain length that's going to represent where these different dimensions would be. So since they're on a corner, they're going to be foreshortened, so they won't really be there, but I'll show you how that works here. So the first thing we want to do is establish what is going to be the actual distance from here to here on our cube. So, and you can set it whatever size you want. You need to know what it is so you can keep it the same. So in this case, I'm going to have it be, let's say, 1/2 inch. So at 1/2 inch, that represents one side of the cube. So I'm saying that that's about the cube. Okay, we need 2 of these since we're going to see one plane of our cube over here and one plane over here. So I'm going to make another mark at another 1/2 inch right about here. Okay, and then the last thing I need to do, so we're going to call this on the ground measuring line, this is the true length of the cube. That's what the cube would be if it wasn't foreshortened. But since it's foreshortened, we won't actually draw it there. So that's true length 1 and true length 2. And then we also need to establish our true height, which would be on a vertical plane exactly parallel with our line of sight. And the true height, this line that I just drew, is actually going to be the distance from here to here. This is going to be the front corner. So I'm going to draw that line a little bit heavier than I have the other ones, because these other ones are just kind of guidelines. They're tools to help me draw the cube. But the actual cube, I'm going to want to make a little darker. I want to emphasize it with some darker lines. Okay, so since this is the front corner, now we know that one side has to go to the vanishing point over here, and one side has to go to the vanishing point over here. So let's start on this side. We're going to go from the vanishing point from the front corner to the vanishing point. I'm drawing really light right now because I'm not sure where the back corner is going to end. I started the line here, and then I started drawing this, but I need to figure out exactly where this ends so that I can draw it, and that's where the measuring points come in handy. So since I'm drawing from vanishing point 1, I'm going to use measuring point 1, and I'm going to draw a line really lightly from measuring point 1 to my true length dot here. I draw it really light, but where that measuring point line touches this receding line, that's where the cube ends. So now I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to hit this a little heavier. I'm going to emphasize it because I know that that's how big my cube is going to be. That's where that foreshortened line will end. And I'm going to come over here and do the same thing with the top. I'm going to extend this line back to my vanishing point from the top corner. Okay. The nice thing is now that I've figured out where this line ends, I know that I can just draw, since this line here is going to be parallel with this line, so I can draw this line straight up. And I'm going to hit it, I'm going to emphasize it, not quite as much as the front, because this is closer to me than this one. And then I can emphasize this top line as well. And now we've drawn one plane, this plane, in perfect two-point perspective. Let's do this other side now. So I've got my vanishing point 2 over here. Extend that line back, and now we got the same problem. I'm not sure where exactly this line's going to end. And so since I used vanishing point 2, I'm going to go to measuring point 2, and I'm going to connect very lightly those two dots. And where that measuring line intersects with the receding line is where that back edge is going to be. And then I can kind of strengthen that line a little bit. And then I need to do the same thing with the top here. The top corner is going to go to this vanishing point. Okay. And I can do that same principle. So since this line is parallel with this line, I know where that corner is. I can draw my line straight up, and it's really handy that it's right next to my line of sight so that I can make sure that it's parallel. Okay. So now we've got two planes, And we need to do the top plane still. We haven't done this plane yet. So that's what's next. And to do that one, I'm going to start at this corner and go back to vanishing point 1 again. And just kind of a thought here, but as the closer your object is to the eye level, the less you see of the top plane. So if this is right up by the eye level, you don't see very much, and then as it gets further away, you'd see more and more and more of that top plane. So, and then for this other corner, I got to go back to this vanishing point. And then where these two lines intersect tells you where the back corner is. So I'm going to emphasize this line a little bit. Okay. And now there is a perfect cube in 2-point perspective. Now if we wanted to take a minute, we could pretend like we have X-ray vision and draw through the cube a little bit. So even though with like this wood block, that's what we would see. We'd see 2 planes here. But now let's pretend it's glass or something like that. And we want to see through it a little bit. So in order to draw that one, we'll go from this corner back to vanishing point 1 very lightly. From this corner back to vanishing point 2 very lightly. And look at that. The back corner is right behind the front corner. So I'm going to emphasize these a little bit, but not anywhere near as much as I have the front one. And the last thing we need to do is connect the back corner with this corner, and that would be just a straight vertical line. And I could take a minute and kind of erase out the guidelines and the measuring lines and really spend some time cleaning this up and making it look nice. Okay. That one seems a little strong still. There it is, a cube drawn in 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective. Whoops, totally drawn in 2-point perspective.